Today, in a daytime exclusive, Beverly Peele is speaking out about the violation she says she endured at the hands of Peter Nygård. She joins us now from her home in Georgia. Beverly, thank you so much for joining us. It's a lot to talk about here, but I want to start where your story really, as this international supermodel, began. You were the face of Versace at age 12. You had your own phenomenally successful career and beloved throughout the industry. How did you meet Peter Nygård?
I met Peter Nygård on my return. My girlfriend had come to pick me up at the airport in Los Angeles, and she wanted to introduce me to a millionaire who was a fashion designer, and his house on the beach was on our way back to my house, so it wasn't anything that was out of the way. So she talked me into stopping by at this party, and it's like, okay, whatever, I'll give it a go. And went there, walked into this beautiful, amazing 70s style house on the beach, and this man who looked like Siegfried and Roy on the television, and Robin Leach was interviewing him or something about the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and then I hear this man with an accent come behind me and say in my ear, "Now pay attention, because I'm going to quiz you after," or "This is your future husband." And he said some other kind of jokes, and I turn around and it's Mr. Peter Nygård. And so that was my first, just hello with Peter.
Right.
And then later on that evening, we talked, and, with a whole bunch of people around, my girlfriend included, and we discussed possibly, signing me to a contract deal. And a couple days later, I went back and he had the contract signed, all made up and written up, and I signed it. And that was the beginning of the end.
You've said that the ink was still wet on the paper when Peter Nygård violated you. And
Yes.
you talk about that in the documentary.
Mhm.
This is not something that you've talked about publicly. I know that people around you were aware, but not something you chose to share with the public.
Just a few people around me. I mean, some of my closest friends didn't really know the depth of it. They knew something strange was going on, or, I had ill feelings towards him and stuff like that. And, but yeah, I haven't, this is my first venture out and sharing it, and with the hopes that my story will help other people come forward and, be strong and know that they have a safe haven, a place to go to, and there's people that you can talk to. And, I want to make sure that, and my son is really the reason why I came forward. He's my superhero, and he told me that it's okay, Mom, that people will definitely take to your story, and don't be ashamed of it. It's fine. And I'm not ashamed and all that stuff. So he gave me the strength to do it. And also so I can help other women know that it happens, unfortunately, to a lot of people.
You mentioned your son, Beverly. For those who've not seen the documentary, you reveal that what happened to you, which you describe as a violation or an incident, resulted in you becoming pregnant. At the time of your pregnancy, you thought it was your husband. And then you
Right.
gave birth
Yes.
to a child that was Peter Nygård's.
Yeah, that was heavy, because I hadn't shared my feelings. I had already talked to my son about the incident and how everything that went down. My son and I are very close, and I told him, that it was hard for me to take you into my arms and things like that. Everything that I say, my son already knows, so it's not anything that he's hearing for the first time. We've already discussed our things, and he's such a strong boy, or young man, I should say. And I'm very, very thankful for him. That's the best thing I got out of Peter Nygård was my son. But yeah, it was really hard for me to come to terms with the fact that this isn't the baby that my husband and I made. This is from this horrible, just evil person. I did not want to breastfeed. I didn't want to, let the baby smell get on me. And, I hate saying that, but that's the truth. And it's because of what Peter Nygård did to me, and because of the fact, just the way that everything went down. And I can't get enough of him now, of course, but
Well, he's a beautiful young man, and he represents you so well. Tell me what it was like when you revealed to him that you shared a son after what happened to you?
I wasn't going to say anything ever, about his son. We didn't say anything about him being the father until Trey was 5 years old. So for the first 5 years, Trey knew my husband as his papa. And then when he was 5, I just said, I introduced it like, well, God loves you so much, you have a papa and a father, and this man that you've been calling Mr. Nygard is your father. And that's that. Peter and I never really spoke of how we were going to break it to Trey or how we were going to break the news. It was just like, okay, well, yes, that's my son, and his mom is Supermodel Beverly Peele.
Peter apparently told you at some point in time he would make your life a living hell for not
Oh, yeah.
entering a relationship with him, and that he
Yes.
threatened to turn your son against you?
Oh, yes, definitely. All of that is true. Yeah. When I first was going after for the child support case, the contract was over, but I was still doing a lot of press things, and he wanted me to be his girlfriend, and I was just like, no, I'm not gonna ever be your girlfriend, and no, it's not gonna happen. And then one night he was like, well, if you're not gonna be my girlfriend, I'm gonna make your life a living hell. And before all this stuff happened, he was trying to turn Trey against me. Every time he would get Trey alone, he would be talking, bad talking me and to Trey. And Trey would tell me, Trey tells me everything. And he would tell me, and I'm like, well, did you stand up for me? And he's like, you know how dad is, like, nobody can stand up to him, but he definitely knew that I was uncomfortable and things like that. But he just makes it impossible for people. He likes to put people against one another,
Coming up, Beverly is staying with us. Peter Nygård ended up behind bars after another son, not his son, with Beverly, turned him in. We'll meet that man whose life mission it is to help the survivors who fell prey to his father after the break.
We all have to work together to compile the evidence needed to actually arrest someone or stop someone from continuing to hurt others. And it breaks my heart to say that about my own.
Welcome back. We've been talking with supermodel Beverly Peele, who says that she was violated by Peter Nygård in a non-consensual encounter. And joining us now is Zen Bickle, the fashion executive's oldest child, who is working to keep him behind bars. Kai, thank you for joining us. When did you learn as an adult about the allegations against him?
Well, Peter Nygård is a master at deception, and he was very careful about the information that was out there about him. He didn't have any criminal charges against him, and he would suppress any information, any voices that might speak out against him. For me, when I was randomly attending a dinner party in May of 2019, I felt that I saw a glimpse of the monster that actually is Peter Nygård.
What did you see?
Well, out of respect to the family, there was they've asked me not to talk in detail about it, but I basically saw a 5 or 10 second moment where he thought that everybody wasn't looking, and I felt that he touched a child inappropriately. And that was when I first had the alarm bells going off in my mind and set forth on an investigation to see if he really was a monster.
You've changed your last name to your mother's last name, Bickle, which I should make that point, and my apologies, because you do not call him your father. You refer to him very specifically as Nygard to distance yourself.
Yeah, I was really lucky to grow up and have a fantastic role models with my mom and a gentleman named Billy Frank Jr., civil rights icon out here, who I refer to as my father now. He was really more my dad. Peter Nygard was an absentee father, and he based the a relationship on a foundation of lies. And there was a moment as this unraveled. Really, it started in February. It really escalated for me personally in April, is when I actually connected with the civil attorneys and got connected to the authorities and really focused full time on assisting the investigation. Because at that point, there had been enough evidence that I was able to collect that I was convinced that not only was the civil suit likely true, but that he was still a dangerous and active predator. And the problem was that he was very much a flight risk. So even it's very hard to actually arrest someone and stop them. So when more and more survivors were coming forward and they were filing criminal charges, you were sort of shocked to find out that it could take months and months and months before an arrest would happen. So there was a lot of anxiety about that, because he was very much intending on going to a jurisdiction where he wouldn't even have to answer for these crimes.
What worries you regarding the possibility that justice won't be served in this case or these many cases?
Well, the big fight was really from February to December of 2020. That's when I was the most worried about justice not being served, because even under a criminal investigation, there is a loophole that you're allowed to leave the country. Even if in Canada, for example, if you have criminal charges that are sitting on the Crown prosecutor's desk, you still can leave the country and fly to a jurisdiction where they just can't arrest you. And that was my greatest fear in this, because I know his mind and I know that he has no regard for the law.
What happens to his money with this civil lawsuit? Is the idea to do what's happened in the Epstein case as well, that this would somehow be a civil case and settle damages for the victims?
Well, I personally believe that all of Nygard's assets should go to survivors, to authorities, to lawyers, and debts that he already had. The problem is, it was listed in the court recently for the bail hearing, was that two of Nygard's companies had liquidated, they said, $70 million worth of USA assets. And I'm very concerned that if that money goes offshore, what are we going to do?
Right.
So there are a lot of things that we need to be looking at right now, because in my mind, we may have the criminal in jail, but is the getaway car driving away?